Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul uqdatan bilisani yafqahu qawli. Amin ya rabbil alameen. Today, I'm really excited that the topic I chose, it's very near and dear to my heart, and yet it is the most forgotten one, taken for granted, very textual, because all I remember from my past, I only read these in, the religious books and was not more talked about. We as Muslims, we are always weighing ourselves in iman, our faith, keeping check and balance within our inner world. And as I was reciting Surah Baqarah today, I came across this beautiful verse, and I thought of sharing with those who might need such kind of reminders or upliftings in their low times. And for that, I chose Ayah 74 from chapter 2 of the Quran. And in this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned three types of hearts. Allah says, even then your hearts became harder, like a rock, or even harder than rocks. For some rocks gush rivers, others split open spilling water, and others are just humbled in awe of Allah. And Allah is never unaware of what you do. This ayah is starting from the hardening of a heart. This ayah, if you read the books of hadith or you read Quran, the role of heart and its importance is mentioned quite a few times. As far as weighing the iman inside, weighing your faith inside is highlighted. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he mentioned that if your heart is good, everything is good. The driver of your soul is basically your heart. This particular ayah is addressed to the Jews in Medina at the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and where Allah is reminding them of their previous stubborn reaction towards a message. Meanwhile, Allah is also addressing Prophet and his companions sallallahu alaihi wasallam who were dealing with these Jews directly in dawah, because the companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they thought it would be much easier to target the Jews rather than Makkans or the Mushrikeens, because they have idea about, they have the concept of revelation. They know they're people of knowledge, people of book. They've had prophecies before, and but it turned out to be completely the opposite. Little did they know that it was even the hardest part was dealing with the Jews of Medina. Now, in the ayah, Allah is talking about three types of rocks, and this rock or stone, it's a parable of human heart. There are three types of rocks. We'll talk about the first one first. The first one is the type of the rock that gushes the river from within, that bursts open. This type of rock is a simulation of a person who is deeply reflective, thinking about the purpose of life, looking forward, working towards it, having existential queries inside. And when this type of a person receives a solution, it clicks without any second thought. There is an excitement inside. And look how beautifully Allah is relating this type of a heart with a rock that is spilling or gushing water from within. Water here in this verse is a parable of iman or faith. This type of heart is already longing for the truth, searching for it. And if you want to personify this type of heart, then amongst the companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam were Ali bin Abi Talib, Abu Bakr, Khadija radhiyallahu ta'ala anhu, one of the few Sahabas that accepted Islam as soon as they heard the message, and they did not hesitate to accept Islam. Now we talk about the second type of rock Allah has mentioned here, and that is the one that is, if it is cracked open or hit by something, it will open and it will have water inside. Water will start running from within. This type of rock or stone is a parable of a person who is an extrovert, not philosophical at all, probably more talkative, very social, busy in his own life, has his own stuff going on. Purpose of life is not that of a priority. They have iman inside, but they need a traumatic experience to crack open. And you might have seen people changing their entire lifestyles after going through something, loss of a loved one, or a near-death experience, or a bad accident, or a surgery. And you can call it an incidental iman. Incidental, but not accidental. That some incident happened and it changed their life. Going back into the Islamic history, Umar radhiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he is the best example for this type of a rock. He was a celebrity of that era. He had so many things going on in his life. He's busy. There are quite a lot of things that he's dealing with. So once what happened was that he was standing behind the Ghilaf al-Kaaba, the Kaswa, and Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was praying there. And he saw him and he was enraged. He was about to jump and, beat Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam up. But he started listening to the recitation which he was reciting, and he was amazed by the words. He thought it's an amazing poetry. And you know what Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was reciting? He said, وَمَا هُوَ بِقَوْلِ شَاعِرٍ, and it's not the word of a poet. And he gets, shocked, startled. How did he read my mind? He must be some kind of a mind reader or a magician. And then Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam recites, وَمَا هُوَ بِقَوْلِ كَاهِنٍ قَلِيلًا مَا تَذْكَرُونَ, and it's not a word of a mind reader. and he gets shocked again. And then Prophet Muhammad recites Tanzilum min Rabbil Alameen. This revelation is from the master of all the nations. And he gets scared and he runs away. He was shaken by the words of Allah. And then later we all know he was informed by some people of Makkah that his own sister is accepting Islam. And he runs toward her house and he hears both of them, the sister and the husband, her husband were reciting the word of Allah, and he slams the door open. He started hitting her nose starts bleeding. And then he asked her, whatever you were reciting, read it to me. And when she started reading, I believe it was verses from Surah Maryam, and he listens to the word of Allah and he starts crying. His heart cracked open and he started crying of Iman. Here we can also relate the crying as water that Allah has mentioned in this type of rock. Now the third type of rock that is mentioned in this ayah is the one that is falling, kind of like rolling down or like a landsliding. But here Allah did not mention water, aka Iman. People having this type of heart will do whatever it is expected to be a Muslim, and they will do all the obligatory rituals, they will pray, they will fast. Their mind is submitted, but it's still not affecting their heart. They have not tasted the sweetness of Iman. And these type of hearts listen to the recitation and religious lectures. They understand, but they are not moved by the words. They won't comprehend and work towards it. Because we hear it from our Prophet ﷺ that a soft heart is the one that shed tears when it is exposed to the word of Allah, and that heart is very dear to Allah. Now this type of a person, he will fear Allah, he has entered Islam, but he cannot claim to be having Iman inside. So Allah is telling Prophet and his companions that the Jews in Medina, they have known the truth long before. In fact, they were in direct communication with Allah through Moses. But it did not affect him. Their level of hypocrisy is their next level of hypocrites. That's why Allah says their hearts are hard as rocks, or even harder than rocks. This is a very beautiful ayah that tells us the levels of faith inside us. Now, talking about the level of faith, let me just quickly give you a type of an understanding about the levels of faith that we can relate with the types of rock here. So there are 3 levels of faith in our deen. The first one is Islam, the second is Iman, and the third one is Ihsan. Islam is this is the first one, and it is type of people who are doing the obligatory rituals or practicing. If somebody looks at them, they can tell that they are Muslims. You know what Islam is. It's 5 pillars of Islam is Shahada, Salat, Zakat, Saum, Hajj. So they're doing all that. And these type of people are called Muslims. The second level is Iman. People having Iman, they're called Mu'mineen. They have tasted the sweetness inside their heart. There are 6 pillars of Iman, everybody knows, and nobody can see it because Allah knows what is inside your heart. Because you do tasdeequn bil qalb. You believe in the heart, believe in angels, believe in the books, believe in the messengers, believe in the day of judgment. It's inside your heart. Only you can tell what you believe. And the third and the most important type is Ihsan. This is the highest level of conviction. Once Angel Jibreel came down to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and he asked him, what is Ihsan? And he replies that Ihsan is that when you are worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you are convinced that you can see him. And if you cannot imagine that, then you believe that he's watching you. Allah says, if a person has a quality of ihsan, Allah gives that person the authority of knowledge. In the ending of Surah Baqarah, Allah says, وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَيُعَلِّمُ اللَّهُ. Be conscious of Allah and Allah will teach you. Imagine Allah being your teacher. This was such a beautiful reminder, and every time when I read it, I get moved by the parables of the Quran. There is no match, and the way Allah is relating things with the hearts of mu'min or a Muslim, it's amazing. It's beyond, the explanation of words. So I hope Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us with the level of ihsan and make our hearts softer, and may our hearts be filled with the iman. And thank you so much. Jazakumullahu khair.